Praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and who still lead as examples to the flock. Peace and salutations to the Akim out there pushing his word in all sincerity, in all truth, making their voices heard, declaring the words of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai into the earth, as we have been charged to do, and also to the large multitude of men, women, and children whom the Lord has given the spirit of repentance unto, through the mercy that is afforded to Yahushua HaMashiach, our atonement, our scapegoat, that we may repent, and be joined once more to our God, the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Shalom. Now this lesson, I'm not sure yet what I'm going to be entitled this lesson. Maybe, the lies of the devil, or something along that line, or the devil wants to control the narrative, something along that line, and it, recently, this morning I was scrolling through, TikTok, checking up on the new, not TikTok, Salakia, Instagram, I keep saying the wrong word, not Instagram, X, and I came across this news post, about, Bibi Netanyahu, wanting to pretty much control the narrative right now, so I wanted to, just go into, what was being discussed, and why they want, to control the narrative so much. So I asked, the chat, in a recent media post, Benjamin Netanyahu discussed social media as a key weapon on securing support for Israel, while mentioning a possible purchase of TikTok by an Israeli company. Is this a move to control Israeli propaganda on social media? Right? So it says, based on research results, here's what happened regarding Netanyahu's recent statements about social media and TikTok. In a recent meeting with U.S. influencers, and that's important, let's look up what an influencer is. It's a person or thing that influences a person who has become well known through regular social media posts and is able to promote a product or service by recommending it online. Another thing you have to remember is that a lot of these influencers are bought and paid for by governments and private companies, right? Their opinion is not their own, right? They garner a large social media following and then they monetize that by selling their influence to either the government or private companies or both. Right? Don't trust anything that you see just a random person online saying it. If there's no news source or news report or video to back it up, do not follow it. Right? So there was a meeting with the U.S. influencers. Netanyahu made explicit statements about using social media as strategic tools to influence an American opinion. And the reason why is because opinion is being swayed away from God damn it, is being swayed away from support is being swayed away from America, right? So from Israel, right? Support is being swayed from Israel, right? And if you lose the information warfare, right, that can cause your cause, to be ineffective, right? So let's move on. It says he described social media as a weapon to secure our base in the U.S. and identified TikTok as the most important purchase going on right now, alleging its control to be consequential. Netanyahu specifically said weapons change over time. The most important ones are in the social media, because what they have realized is that most people right now, especially young people, what they call young people, millennials and under, 30s and under, right? They get their news from social media, not from traditional mainstream media sources, but from social media, right? Even though you have mainstream media houses on social media like CNN and whatever, they have their social media pages, but people don't usually follow them. They follow quote unquote independent journalists and just regular people getting videos and spreading it online, right? So what they realize is that if you don't control the narrative, if you don't infiltrate this space, this new space where information is being spread, you lose control of the narrative, right? It says the context involved the recent acquisition of TikTok's U.S. operations under a deal signed in September 2025. so that's this month, ByteDance will retain less than 20% ownership, while American investors will control just over 65%, with Oracle, Silver Lake, and Abu Dhabi's MGX together holding 45%. Oracle CEO Larry Ellison, described as a Jewish Zionist billionaire, that's how they described it, not my words, right? And the single largest individual donor in the IDF, having given as much as 26 million to it via the Friends of the IDF organization. So that's information that was provided to me, right? And here's the link to it. Let me see if I can get it. All right, so it provided links. Just Business, Israel to grab hold of U.S. TikTok. The deal to sell TikTok was officially signed, with U.S. company Oracle being one of the main owners. Plot twist: Oracle's CEO Larry Ellison is there's a word right there, one of the largest individual IDF donors, giving as much as 26 million to it via Friends of the IDF organization. Right? So there you have it. The receipts are there. Regarding your question about controlling propaganda, Netanyahu's own words suggest this interpretation has merit. He explicitly framed social media platforms as weapons for securing support and described the TikTok acquisition as strategically important for Israeli interests. He also stressed the importance of X in this context, which is Twitter. The timing is significant given reports that the push to ban TikTok gained steam after pro-Palestinian content went viral amidst the ongoing genocide conducted by Israel. Critics view this as an attempt to control narratives and have been unfavorable to Israeli nation actions, particularly regarding Gaza. So while Netanyahu framed it as securing support rather than controlling propaganda, his explicit description of social media as weapons and his focus on acquiring influence over major platforms suggests the strategic approach to shaping information flows and public opinion. Right? Let's get a couple scriptures here. Right? This is Psalm chapter 58 and verse 3. Right? It says, "The wicked are estranged from the womb. Right? They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies." Right? Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. Right? They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth the ear, which will not hearken to the voice of charmers, charming never so wisely. Break their teeth, O Yahweh, in their mouth. Break out the great teeth of the young lions, O Lord Yahweh. Right? So that's all they want to do. They want to make sure that their lies is the one that has the forefront in the media platform, the media landscape, right? Because right now, hey, I forgot who it was. I believe it's one of the Rothschilds or one of them members of them rich family said that the worst thing they could have done was invent the internet, right? Because the narrative is out of their control. It's spinning out of their control. So they have to be more sophisticated, right? In trying to control, the narrative. Because it's not as simple as just buying off the mainstream media companies. People aren't just sitting in front of the news watching CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, and people aren't just getting their news from the television anymore, right? People can go now, right, and especially on TikTok is one of their biggest problems, right? People can go now and get first-hand video of what's going on. Something can be going on in the Middle East and somebody just take up their phone, video it, and just upload it to TikTok, and boom, it's all over the world. I know, as a news corporation or as a government that's trying to control the narrative on the ground, right? It's spun out of your hand because you're trying to spin a particular message, but there's videos being released of raw footage, right? That's contradicting your narrative, right? So that's undermining your efforts, right? For the terrible, this Isaiah 29 verse 20, "For the terrible one is brought to naught, the scorner is consumed, and all that watch for iniquity are cut off. That make a man an offender for a word, that lay a snare for him that reproveth in the gate, that turn aside the just for a thing of naught." And what they're gonna do, or what they are doing along with these acquisitions of social media platforms, is vilifying, right? Look up that word, vilifying those who speak against their talking points, against their propaganda, right? And saying, oh, you're anti-Sem and you're, whatever, and then boom, you're locked off of social media, or you're locked up in general, right? Now I wanted to see if I can get, that post, right, that I posted here. Right. So here it is. Right. So it says this is a leaked audio of ADL chief executive Jonathan Greenback freaking out because global youth aren't buying Israel propaganda anymore. Let me see if I can play it here.
Suggests this is not a major, but I also want to point out that we have a major generational problem. All the polling I've seen, ADL's polling, ICC's polling, independent polling, suggests this is not a left-right gap, folks. The issue in the United States in support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old. And the numbers of young people who think that Hamas's, massacre was justified is shockingly and terrifyingly high. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Taglit, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy towards this, fast. Because again, we've been chasing this left-right divide. It's the wrong game. The real game is the next generation, and the Hamas and their accomplices, the useful idiots in the West, are falling in line in ways that are terrifying. Last thing I'll just say, we saw a dramatic change in the language of the activists here in America on October the 8th. The language of groups that we've long tracked, who've long been problematic, like Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace, they flipped like this and went to Iranian propaganda. The language I could show you from their toolkits, because our analysts are in their groups. We saw this again on October
Right.
8th.
So now they're
It was
saying
that fast.
it's Iranian propaganda, people who are speaking against them, online, So I want to see if the there was a chart posted here, if it was here. Here we go. Yeah. So it shows you Israel's military response to Hamas attacks is fully justified, and you see by the age group. So you see people who are oldest, 65 plus years old, 81% support, and as you go down the line, in age, you see the support dropping off to when you get to 18 to 34-year-olds, right? Only 27%, right? So new CNN poll, most Americans sees Israel military response to Hamas as justified, right? And that's just the older folks, right? The younger folks, right? Not so much. So what you just heard in the audio is that they believe that they have as you said a major TikTok problem, right? Because too much information, too much truth is coming out, right? And I'll say this again just to clarify. GMS, Great Millstone, doesn't support one side or the other. They both don't belong in the land. We stand for truth, and we stand for the so-called white man being exposed, for the liar that he is, right? So I asked again, what is the significance of controlling the narrative in warfare? Controlling the narrative in warfare has become increasingly recognized as a fundamental strategic element, often described as a force multiplier that can determine outcomes beyond the battlefield itself. Right? So it gives you some historical foundations, modern strategic importance. In contemporary conflicts, narrative control serves several critical functions. It shapes domestic support, right, which is essential for sustaining military operations. Governments need public backing to maintain funding, right? Recruitment and political will. Like, for example, in when World War II started, the majority of the American public were against it because World War I was so devastating, right? And they had to have an attack on Pearl Harbor to convince the American people to go to war, right? So it says international legitimacy also depends on heavily on narrative framing, as global opinion affects diplomatic support, sanctions, and arms supplies and coalition building. Narrative warfare directly impacts enemy morale and cohesion, right? Effective information campaigns can encourage defections, reduce fighting effectiveness, and create internal divisions. Conversely, it strengthens, right, friendly forces by maintaining a unity of purpose and justifying sacrifices, right? So this part also I wanted to read. Modern narrative control operates across multiple domains simultaneously. Traditional media remains important, but social media platforms now allow direct, real-time communication with global audiences. Here's this point. Governments and military forces actively manage information through press release, embedded journalism, strategic leaks. Like, for example, that big meeting that's going on with all the generals, in America. Why should you know? Why does everybody know about this secret meeting? Because it was a strategic leak, right? When that conversation between the top execs in the US, about the attack on Iran before it happened, that messaging on Telegram, that conversation that was leaked about the when they were planning that attack on Iran, that was a strategic leak, right? And coordinated messaging campaigns. The speed and reach of digital communications, being narratives, can shift rapidly, requiring constant attention and quick responses to emerging stories. A single video or image can potentially alter international perception within hours, and they are trying to regain control of the narrative, yo. This is Isaiah 32, verse 5. The vile person shall be no more called liberal, nor the churl said to be bountiful, for the vile person will speak villainy, and his heart will work iniquity to practice hypocrisy, right? And to utter error against the Lord. He will to make empty the soul of the hungry, and he will cause the drink of the thirsty to fail. The instrument also of the church are evil. He devises wicked devices to destroy the poor with lying words, right? Even when the needy speaketh right, right? It's always about pushing his narrative, right? Spreading his lying words to destroy the poor, even when the needy speaketh right, right? That's what this is all about. This is Isaiah 59 verse 13. In transgression and lying against the Lord and departing from our God, speaking oppression and revolt, conceiving and uttering from the heart words of falsehood. We need to control the narrative. We have a TikTok problem. We don't have a left-right problem. We have a young versus old problem, because young people aren't believing the narrative anymore. They aren't drinking the Kool-Aid anymore. So we need to infiltrate the source of of what they're getting information, which is TikTok, right? Look how long they've been forcing the sale of TikTok. First they try to justify it by saying it's Chinese propaganda. That didn't work. But you know what worked? It is anti-Sem propaganda. That's what worked, right? Because the influence of the small hats is much more powerful than the influence of anti-China sentiment. So that's what got the sale through the door. That is what got the sale through the door. The concern, right, that the small hatters are losing control of the narrative. People aren't believing their lies anymore. Young people especially aren't believing their lies anymore. Right? Judgment is turned away backward, justice standeth afar off, for truth is fallen in the street, and equity cannot enter. Yea, truth faileth, and he that departed from evil maketh himself a prey. And the Lord saw it, and it displeased him that there was no judgment. Soon we won't be able to do videos online speaking against certain things. This video might be taken down. Lord willing, it stays up, and edifies, brothers and sisters. But, soon we won't be able to say certain things online, right? As they try their best, to control the narrative, right? Revelation 20 and verse 7. And when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. That 1,000 years is what they call the Dark Ages, or the medieval ages, right? That started at the decline of the Western Empire, the Western Roman Empire, and ended at the Renaissance, right? So roughly about 300 AD to 1300 AD, right? A little bit more than that. And he shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is at the sand of the sea. One way to deceive them is to what? Propaganda. Propaganda. The weaponization of information. As Netanyahu said, he said what? Social media is a weapon. It is a weapon. Information is a weapon. Right? They went up in the breadth of the earth and compassed about the saints, right? And the beloved city, and fire came down from heaven, right? From Yahweh from heaven, and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire, which is what? Thermonuclear fire, yo. Thermonuclear fire. And America and Israel will be burned, but Israel will be rebuilt, but America will not. Where the beast and the false prophet are, and they shall be tormented day and night forever. So hopefully this lesson was edifying. Until next time, shalom.